Welcome to the affiliate interview series. Today I've got a special guest and a good friend, Sean Chaudhary, and he's from Alchemy Leads. And I'm going to pass it over to you, Sean, to talk about what you do, which I know, but tell us what you do in SEO and marketing in general.
Definitely. So first and foremost, it was Father's Day, so I'm first and foremost a happy dad, a proud dad. And Alchemy Leads is our SEO agency. Basically, we do SEO for B2B and DTC, direct to consumer companies, with the goal to multiply revenue, 2x, 3x, 4x revenue over time, using SEO. And our main philosophies are to sort of simplify SEO. As you know, SEO can be a mythical, almost very complex being, the way that folks frame it. And we try to break it down into just three pillars: content, tech, links. Kind of dumbing all of it down to just those core three things. And I think, with those core pillars, really you have 85% of good SEO, just knowing those kind of the fundamentals. And so we work with all kinds of clients in those fields. So a lot of DTC, Shopify stores, but then a lot of B2B kind of boring industries. So we work with like a heavy equipment company, right?
B2B, boring like me.
Well, no, I think you're pretty cool, but I actually like boring. I think nowadays, in this guru culture, boring businesses actually do really well, especially in a downturn, or a recession. Those boring businesses are kind of still pumping along, making things go. So we have some, I call them boring. I don't think mind it when I call them boring, but cleaner manufacturers, kind of like industrial warehouses, 3PL companies. And so we've kind of found this weird niche, CBD companies as well in the DTC side. So we have this weird niche where I would say half of our customers are consumer facing and the other half are very business to business, high average order value, very kind of technically dry material. And so you kind of have to, with content, you kind of have to thread the needle for both. But we do a great job. We have plenty of great case studies. And I think one of the biggest separators for us between all the other agencies out there is that we have no contracts. We're month to month. Literally, if a client is ever unhappy, we'll let them go. Like, we're not locking them into a year-long thing. And even with being month to month, we have several companies that have been with us since our inception, which is 6 years ago, 2017. And as you know, having 50% of your clients stay with you for 5+ years is kind of crazy. So we
Rare.
get the job done. We try to report. We try to be transparent as well. So we don't have any secret sauce. So even our link building, our prospecting, they can see all of that. So we try to be kind of like the good guys in the space.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that, just talking about the B2B boring aspect, it seems like B2B's had a pretty radical shift in the last couple of years where, COVID hit and then, everything kind of amplified in the whole marketing world. And I mean, even doing what I do with my affiliate software, which is B2B, and I kind of looked at it as almost boring, except for I get excited for what I get to work on. But the shift in how people view what we do has changed rapidly in a short period of time. And I think there's a lot changing both in B2B SEO and B2B marketing. I think you're seeing like, okay, we got a podcast and there's a whole bunch of B2B podcasts out there. There's no shortage of them, but it looks like this is exploding. And, what would you say like that you're seeing on the ground in terms of, companies either make the shift, or are there still a lot that are struggling with this concept of going, I also need to do SEO and or like content marketing, or I need to make a podcast, and what do you see and how do you talk to these people that are struggling?
Definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think COVID was sort of like a digital transformation for those industries. If they were B2B, they went from getting leads, however they were getting leads, email or phone call, to really having to use digital to get more leads, maybe running ads, maybe really focusing on their SEO. So I do think I've seen a shift in our B2B customers in understanding the value of SEO. I think the other big thing is that SEO long term has kind of like the lowest cost. Your cost per acquisition is the lowest. So it's kind of the most equitable channel. And so I think companies are realizing it. I will say this, I would say 90% of my B2B customers they're understanding, and they're kind of trying to be ahead of the game. So they're looking at things like TikTok, which, for some industries, TikTok is kind of a hard animal. How do you make industrial manufacturing sexy for TikTok? But they're thinking about it. We consult with them on different, we'll send them ideas of other content that's gone viral in similar spaces, and they're into it, and they're learning. And then I do have, I would say 10% of customers, I can think of two that are kind of like, one is medical diagnostics, medical devices. They're kind of, they're indifferent to some degree. Like, in some cases, some of those companies, really their deals or their new customers come from relationships, whether it's academic or whether it's they have labs all over the country that, put in orders. So some of them are kind of, nicely walled off from the digital space. At least they think that way. And when that changes, we'll see. But I do know that, some of my B2B customers are asking me about AI and how to use AI in their content. So there's definitely a forward thinking that maybe 10 years ago, I don't think you would have seen in the B2B space. Back in the day, some customers you call and they say, you talk about their website and they're like, oh, our website is just for a reference, or, our website is just there so our customers can look at our stuff. But it's not really a focus in kind of supercharging their website. Now I would say that they're looking at all those other angles, like podcasts, like TikTok, I think is a big one, like YouTube Shorts, even things like redesigning their website. I think companies, especially in the B2B space, they can get stale with their design and their website, kind of just leave as is. They think it doesn't really matter. But I've noticed even an uptick in like, hey, is our design converting? Which for a B2B company, you don't always hear. For DTC companies, they're light years ahead of the game. They're redesigning their sites all the time based on the look and feel that kind of works. So I'm definitely seeing a big shift. And I think, 2020, COVID was one of our best years. And I think that has something to do with it. It was kind of like a major shift in thinking for companies.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you just described, I'm like, it sounds like you went to my website and you're just critiquing it right off the bat, like needs a new website, which is totally true. And it's interesting because we've gone through a couple evolutions of our marketing and going, what should we do? And we're trying things. And at the very beginning, like probably about 2 years ago, I felt that SEO was going to be very important. And then I
Mm.
started to thinking, no, marketing and sales is going to be more important. And then, of course, I went through the whole rabbit hole of demand gen, and I'm still a big believer in demand gen. But there's a lot of
Mm.
people in that space that are basically saying SEO is not important. And now that I've taken my own time to look at what SEO can do for us, I'm like, no, they're wrong. And some of them are saying it's not as important, but it's a nice extra thing to have in terms of your tool set, your arsenal. But what would you say to the people that say no to SEO? And I think you already know the answer because one, you have the experience of working with clients, and I'm pretty sure you can take any B2B site, look at it and go, here's your top of funnel and bottom of funnel content strategy.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head again. It's one of those things where sometimes they have to see it to believe it. When you're showing them, and you might have to show them other case studies. For instance, when I have clients that are kind of skeptical of SEO, usually it's because they've kind of they've either gotten burned or they've heard that people get burned, and that's completely true. So there's some trust issue. And then a lot of times they just don't know the limits or what's possible, the potential. So you have to show them. And one of the ones that I show most clients, not necessarily in the B2B space, but it's just in a space that you wouldn't necessarily think SEO would be the driver, is Airbnb. So we write about Airbnb a lot, and Airbnb still to this day, I think 90% of their bookings come from SEO. So, and I compare and contrast that. And by the way, just on a tangent, I find that most of the companies that are kind of skeptical about SEO usually have more of a paid background and maybe even like a VC background. So when you're VC funded or when there's any investment, you kind of have to show the direct ROI of your dollars. So it's very paid based. And so, if they pay $1 and they can see that they made $5, they're happy. SEO doesn't necessarily work like that. But if you look like Airbnb and Verbo, right, and you look at their strategies, we've written about this. Verbo is very much the pay to play, pay a premium. You always see them running ads, and they're burning through their marketing budget. Whereas Airbnb, they have such good press out there, and they're so well known, and they've never really run ads. All of their stuff is organic. All of their stuff is content. All of their stuff is even, hey, their product is so cool that it becomes viral. Like they have, let's say, one cabin in some really cool place that's really fancy and really eccentric that one thing can get them more press than any paid channels. So we try to give case studies, and we try to give little nudges, but at the end of the day, you can't save everyone. So if folks are really, really skeptical, at a certain point, it's better to, kind of find folks who understand the value of SEO.
Yeah, I mean, you can't spend all your time trying to convert people that are going to take so much effort. And it's like, you know what, this is your business. It's you either want to grow and make it work, or go do it yourself. And if you're not gonna, it's sorry, not sorry.
And those customers are usually not, like you said, not a great resource of your time, because, what is the quote? Someone convinced against his will is still unconvinced still, or something like that. So it's going to be a constant process of just like, hey, look, we're doing good. We're doing good. And it's tough to win those clients over. So I think one of the sort of contrarian viewpoints that we have that's led to some success is we try to hit home runs. So if you look at our website, 96% of our customers see an increase in revenue within a year. And the reason that stat is so high, I think the average retention rate is like 78%. And I think a good one is like 80. But the reason ours is so high is because we're very picky. So unless we know without a shadow of a doubt that we can knock it out of the park, and that the client is a worthy client, he or she understands the process, understands the time frames, unless it's a great fit, we're not going to take it on.
That's really interesting. So knowing that you focus a lot on, like a really core B2B thing, which is actually way more interesting for me, maybe not always the most interesting for the affiliate audience, but I find there's a lot of things that you can go back and forth and you can kind of take a couple of learnings or copy a playbook. Like podcasts, I think is a valuable one of them. What are things you think that affiliates could do that they're just not doing a lot of? The first thing that came to my mind is when I did some work for a recent affiliate site, was going, okay, how am I going to get this thing ranking or something interesting that people aren't doing? And one of the things that came to mind is I rarely see affiliates use any of the PR playbook. So I'm wondering if you look at affiliate sites and go, here's a perfect opportunity for that niche, and vice versa. Like, what's your take?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways. I actually think affiliates can plug and play basically any strategy that works for B2B or DTC. They can plug and play. I mean, ultimately, an affiliate should essentially run they should think as a business, right? Because that's essentially what they are. They're their own businesses. And so I would say that a couple of things. One is sort of being everywhere you can be, right? So taking advantage of all the channels. And sometimes I tell folks, especially for me, for instance, I'm not the most, picture friendly guy. I'm actually very shy on camera. In person, I can be very outgoing, and I'm very type A, but on camera, I feel like I look like a douche, and so, and that's going to have to get bleeped out. But, so for
And we're
me,
keeping that.
we're keeping that. All right. But so for me, even, something like this, like a podcast, I haven't done a podcast, I think, in a year or so. And part of it is probably my own insecurities and whatnot, but I just have to get out there. And what I would tell to affiliates is like, even if this podcast gets some traction and everyone sees it, that's for the benefit of me. And then on the flip side, if no one sees it, I got a link, right?
Exactly.
So there's like ways to look at it, and you could look at the same thing with with social media, with TikTok. Even if, let's say, you're in a boring industry, or let's say, we have tried to do some affiliate stuff in the past and not so good at it. It always takes a backseat to client stuff, as you know, which we gotta work on. But we've done stuff for hair care, and it's like, you don't necessarily have to talk about the product that you're selling. If Jason Momoa has crazy good hair and is going viral, do something with that. Try to be outside the box, and sort of the same. I think authenticity sells, and just being yourself. I think folks nowadays, especially the generation that consumes content, can kind of tell when they're being pitched to, and when you're genuinely kind of exciting them, or genuinely kind of speaking their language. And so you have to find ways to speak their language. If you're a golf affiliate, you better be kind of newsjacking all the latest golf stuff, the Live, the Saudi Arabia, stuff. There's so many things to kind of latch onto and talk about. And then from a content strategy, I think it's really just being consistent. So what we do when we bring on a client, within the first month, we kind of map out basically like a master content plan. And that could be, in some cases, like 100 pieces, even more of content. And so, there are different ways to do that. We could try to get all of that done all at once and then post it, consistently. But the main point is consistency, just to keep publishing, keep publishing. And then, yeah, I think latch on to topics that are bigger than you or bigger than your product. And that way you can kind of get a little bit more of an audience. On Twitter is a great place as well. You see folks on Twitter who have made, huge audiences, six-figure follow counts off just shit posting and making funny memes. And then you find out, oh, this is a financial planner. Oh, let me see what he's about. So, you don't actually have to speak your language, especially if it's boring. You don't have to speak a boring language. You can try to relate it to something that's a little bit more sexy.
Yeah, I think you touched on a pretty good point about the authenticity, where Google's trying to like really force this with the EEAT and saying,
Mhm.
okay, you got to be an authority in your space. And I think, even in the B2B space, people like to buy from people. And I've heard that in the B2B journey versus the B2C, which I'm going to put all affiliate marketing in that whole channel. It takes more touch points, or people need to really trust that person or company before they buy. And I think maybe we're actually seeing a shift in the affiliate space where what's affiliate marketing been in the last 10 years? Oh, I'm just going to write content. I'm going to have a content team. It's not even content spinning, but it's kind of like authorless, soulless. It works. And I think we're starting to see that change. I mean, you can get that soulless content with not just content spinners, but AI SEO. So
Right.
that's why I kind of think that the podcast space could be more interesting, where sure, if you want to transcribe it, you can. And that's probably a great idea, because you're still going to have like that content is attributed to actual people. And yeah, I've looked at some gambling affiliate sites where they do podcasts, and I'm like, they might not have a massive audience, but they're definitely going to get sales through this.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, and I think we talked about this in one of our conversations, which is like, if you're a gambling affiliate or anything to do with sports or whatever your mode is, there are so many folks that just, like you said, put out picks and they'll do it in a blog. But I know I'm an avid Laker fan, for better or for worse. I know that's going to turn off like 99% of the listeners. They're going to hate me, and then the 1% is going to be like, yeah. But in Laker world, I follow so many folks that just talk about the sport, just talk about the latest stuff, just talk, so even if you're a gambling affiliate, obviously the picks and certain things are going to make your direct sales, but building that relationship, as you're saying, is more important. Kind of keeping folks informed on like, hey, here's what this sport looks like, or this team looks like. They're getting better, they're getting worse, all the things around it. And so then that way you're actually building kind of like a to Z relationship with your customer, where they, even if they have some latest breaking news with their team, they want to check in with you because you're always covering the latest breaking news. So I think there are a lot of ways, and video, I think that's what you're hitting at as well with podcasts. Video gives you something that text just doesn't do. If we use AI to transcribe this whole thing, like you said, it may be soulless, very bland, dry. But if you're actually watching the video, you're watching me be a douche, you're watching me, our personalities and whatnot. You kind of get a better feel for the person, a better feel for the company. And it's ultimately about relatability. You feel like, okay, yeah. And at the end of the day, we're all just people. You meet, the biggest billionaire CEO, he's still just a person, still has his flaws, So I think we kind of crave that authenticity of just like, hey, let me see what you're about, basically.
I looked at your site and I saw all these really insane PR links. I'm like, I want these right now. Like you had one from Zapier. Who else was on there? Was it GoDaddy on one of them?
I think GoDaddy, I think Inc. Well, GoDaddy, I'm a writer for, so I have like 30 something posts for GoDaddy. And yeah, there's a couple there. I think there's some, and just to I think, again, make it more relatable. I think it's very easy for affiliates to do the same thing. So the way that I got in touch with GoDaddy, I think I had written a blog somewhere on some, more authority place that I basically just sent to the editor. Hey, this could be a good blog. They posted it. And then I just sent that to GoDaddy. Like, hey, do you guys need a writer? And just sent them kind of that one proof of concept. And that's all it really took. Obviously there's some relationship building. You have to know people, you have to deliver good work. But really it's sort of just outreach. Like, I think this all gets into the same thing as authenticity. I think, there are so many folks out there that are kind of just doing things, maybe taking a shortcut, but also doing things in their own self-interest. But if you really have a relationship with, let's say, an editor at GoDaddy, where you're like, hey, what do you need? I'm going to do that for you. And you're thinking about them, not so much you. Um, it's a human nature to kind of, like you said, people do business with people. So if you like the person and you feel like the person's genuinely trying to help you, they're usually going to go ahead and give you a link. Sometimes we'll get a link removed from some publication, and all it takes is just you hit them up and you say, hey, you removed my link, and they're usually like, oh yeah, that was the web developer. That, it's not personal. So really just getting out there is huge. Just making yourself known, and then trying to be resourceful, trying to be useful. So like with the Zapier post, that was another situation where we were just using Zapier for everything. We wrote up kind of a post. We had a great result. Basically, we use Zapier. It
Streamlined.
streamlined.
Yeah.
There we go. It streamlined our sales process. So there was no real manual intervention when a lead came in, when the lead was called on, the whole process. So we just said, hey, let's do a write-up on this and let's send it to Zapier, see what works. We did a write-up, we sent it to Zapier, and they were like, hey, this is great. Of course, they gave us some feedback, like, could you make this a little longer and do this? And then we got the link. So it's just one of those things where you want to be as genuine as possible, trying to help people. And then, of course, creating good stuff is always going to be your winning element.
Yeah, you make it sound so simple. And I had Ollie Bays on the podcast, and obviously he does hero link building, and he basically has a bunch of hero courses, and he says more or less a similar thing, which is, don't think about yourself, think about the other person. Like, what do you need? And sometimes even before asking what they need, just go ahead and do it. Like, they might
Right.
either ask for, or they're just going to ignore your request because you haven't literally put up that email on a platter going, all you need to do is like copy and paste, like it's all done. And I think
And
you're
what's the
you're
risk?
touching on something that's valuable for B2B. And I mean, I'm sure we could apply this all day long in affiliate marketing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And there's no risk. So, like the worst case, that, let's say the Zapier example, if we did this write up, we were going to send it to Zapier. If they didn't accept it, they didn't even look at it, it would be on our blog. We would try to use it to get other links. Maybe we would target Zapier's competitors and say, hey, look,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing here. You want to get us over? So there are a million things you can do, but really it's just about, first off, having sort of the intent of trying to help the other. We didn't write a really lazy article and then send it to them. You try to put your best foot forward. Maybe you spend a couple of weeks making sure that article is perfect, and then if it doesn't work, you move on. You live and you learn.
Yeah. Good thing that they took you up on the offer.
Yeah, yeah, and to be frank, usually there are more. Usually you don't get a response on the first one. There's multiple kind of touches. I think we had a really good contact. And that's the other thing that I will say. Just over time, things compound. So, like, even if we were to write something today that maybe applies to Zapier, I'm pretty sure I could email that contact and maybe get something going, because there was already, a good relationship built. So it's really just taking that step, kind of getting out there, and there's no risk. There's no risk in this game.
Yeah. It's interesting because I mean, I've been in affiliate marketing for a long time. I've done some SEO consulting, and I still have a lot of these accounts, and they're more for testing, but I still get hit up by affiliate managers all the time. And I just feel there's a major gap of affiliate managers not understanding outreach, and they come at it going, I need this from you. It's almost like, do you agree for me to take this from you? And it's like, how about a two-way street? Or like, it's very
Right.
rare that an affiliate manager approaches me and says, hey, here's a free piece of content, or here's a freebie, or hey, I've got these credit, like anything. It just almost never
Anything.
happens. And they're all asking, I want your number one spot. And they expect like they're going to just take it, and I'm going to accept their deal as if they're doing me a favor.
Like, you don't get those offers all day, all day in our inboxes. It's like, hey, and this usually long-winded email about trying to get a link. And it's like, just like you said, now with AI and kind of like low quality content in your emails, we see so many emails that are low quality, where they're asking for something, or they're, maybe the subject line gets you in, you read it and you're like, oh, what? This is nothing. This is kind of like boilerplate stuff, where they just maybe copied and pasted a template. The subject line is usually like quick question, right?
Yeah.
That was one that, maybe that worked 5 years ago, and now that's gotten beaten to death. So really, actually, a good reference on this. I have two, good, I think, people that kind of helped me in 2017 is when 2018 we started to do link building internally, where we stopped relying on like a vendor or like, different paid platforms. And we started doing it internally. And two resources I found that were really helpful were Dan and BB. BB, I think
Yeah.
her style is very much my style. I think it's very similar, where she tries
Right.
not to take herself too seriously. She tries to have fun, even in the email, even in the outreach. It's like maybe you say a dad joke, and then you're just like, hey, take this free piece of content because I'm feeling good. It's Monday. Something something real quick. And then that's much more likely. I think two things. That's much more likely to get read, but that's also much more likely to make the other person on the other side be like, oh, that's a human. Oh, there's a human who has a personality who's reaching out. So it sort of separates yourself from the pack, because as we know, I can look at my inbox right now and find like 80 emails from today, like, hey, dear, I have guest posts for sale. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, you make it sound so simple, like both the way you described it and what BB does, where, I watch some of her presentations and I'm kind of like, she makes it so simple, but it's beyond ridiculous. But it's so ridiculous, it puts a smile on your face. You know it's a real person, and you literally want to reply back. I mean, I think
Right.
she's getting insane reply rates, and she's basically building a team where she's training her outreach people to be just like that. I'm like, um, it's kind of weird.
And
It's like no one's really copying this, and even in affiliate marketing, it's just not being done. And I'm looking at this going, there's a way in which our company will be able to do that for outreach, just to kind of talk to affiliates. And our biggest challenge will be going, how do we do less selling and going, what can we do to help you, or how do we provide value? But yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty cool that you actually have that outreach mentality. If you're doing that, I'm pretty confident you're a rare group of people that even do this. And even when BB's like speaking on stage, people aren't just being, yeah, I'm going to totally copy this.
right, right. Because you have to, no matter what, even if you have the idea, even if you take her idea, you still have to apply it to yourself. So if you might have a different personality, where maybe, you might be a little bit more dark, and maybe you do some dark humor, and that can still get some stuff. So you sort of have to blend it to your personality. And then I think, to your point on BB and her whole process and her team, like, she's training her team to be just as eccentric as her, right? And I think the risk, again, no risk. So let's say you say, I've had meetings with VPs. Actually, I want to name drop this company because it's a huge company, but Back to the Future, let's just say, the car.
Okay.
So I've had meetings with companies, of a certain stature, where, right when they talk about, Alchemy didn't work, right? Like AlchemyLeads, and I'll try to joke with them, and maybe they're too serious, like they're VP corporate, they've been doing this for 30 years. Hey, just get to the point quick. And those folks, you're not going to work with. Your dad joke is not going to work with those folks. But what's the risk? You really take no risk. And then the other thing that is really helpful is when you make personalized emails that have a personality and that kind of speak to the other person. You might send 5 emails and get 3 links versus sending 100 emails and getting 1 link. So
Yeah.
you have to find
Being on
ways
the lucky end.
on the lucky end, right? Yeah, and you have to find ways to kind of differentiate yourself from the saturated market. And I think having a personality does it. For instance, just to go on a little bit of a tangent, some of the best newsletters out there. I love Steve Toth's newsletter, right? SEO Notebook, so good every week, technical. You're really getting advanced nuggets, and he's so consistent. I mean, he's been doing this since, for a long time, at least 5-6 years, every Tuesday, right? I'm not necessarily the same way. If I was to start a newsletter, my newsletter would be, and there's one newsletter that kind of does it. Sean from Ridge Wallet, the CEO of Ridge Wallet, he has Sean Ecom on Twitter. He has a newsletter, and it's very similar to how I would do things, which is like, hey, you're going to get an email from me once in the blue. I don't even know when you're going to get an email from me, and it's going to be short, concise, but it might be weird. So I think the last email I got was like, his subject line was like, I'm the best. And it was just like 9 lines of like him saying, our company's the best. I'm the best, and no rhyme or reason, maybe even typos in the thing, but it just feels like handcrafted. It feels like a real person is behind this versus some of the, some other things that you might kind of just glance over.
Yeah, we don't need everyone to be the same. I mean, there's a comfort in predictability, but then I think we all want a little spice in our life sometimes.
Of course. And that's why memes do so well, right? They
Yeah.
just kind of break the monotony of your feed, whatever. It's like it stops you in your tracks. And sometimes you need a little bit of that.
Yeah, I'm working on that with some videos. I did one where it's like talking about the pain points of having to look at your stats and data for affiliate, like your affiliate accounts. And I said,
Mhm.
having to do this manually is like getting kicked in the nuts. And then I did a whole bunch of series of people like literally getting kicked in the nuts over and over
Oh, I
again.
would
And
laugh. Like
like,
that's the
how
stuff that,
painful is this?
yeah, yeah. And that's the stuff that converts. Like just to us, that kind of appeals to our, everyone I think has like still an inner child or a fun or like, a want for excitement. And seeing people get kicked in the nuts, what's better than that?
Well, it's as long as it's not you, we're all good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I said seeing, right? If you get
Yeah.
kicked in the nuts, not so good. Not so good. The family jewels.
Yeah. All right. I've learned a couple things from this, but it's really good to get a insight of how you think and operate in the B2B sense. It's I've known you have been doing SEO for quite some time, but I didn't realize you were as zeroed in with B2B and everything you said. Like I'm trying to push this towards the affiliate space for the
Mhm.
listeners, but I can't help but geek out. Going, I see so many applications on um, the entire affiliate marketing space, like even on the operator side, and what we do as a SaaS company. So I enjoyed this. Yeah, it was a great chat, and I'm gonna pass it back to you and just let you share how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for having me, John. I've been, we've been meaning to do this for a little while, and I'm glad that we've gotten to do it. And if anyone wants to reach out, go to alchemyleads.com, fill out a contact form, find me on Facebook or Twitter. I think on Twitter it's Sean B2B SEO, SEAN B2B SEO. Fairly simple. Still trying to get my Twitter followers up, but to be honest, I'm more of a consumer right now of content where I'm watching all these crazy things and I'm not really jumping in. I think I'm learning. But yeah, folks can find us on our website or GoDaddy, wherever we write.
Yeah. All right. That was amazing. Have a good one, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, bro. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening. And if you could do me a big favor, could you leave a comment or a rating wherever you listen to this podcast? It'd be a major help and it'd help us boost our rankings. Thank you so much.